All right, welcome back to the deep dive. You sent us some truly fascinating sources today, and honestly, this topic, it feels like something out of sci-fi, but it's very much real, happening right now. Today, we're going to dig into Mount Sinai's, well, incredible breakthrough in using AI for predicting genetic diseases. So our mission here is to really unpack how this new machine learning system isn't just, number crunching. It's actually helping doctors, researchers, and maybe even all of us understand our genetic risks in a whole new way.
Yeah, we're talking about an AI model that predicts which specific genetic mutations are likely to cause disease. It's getting us so much closer to real personalized medicine. So get ready, because let's unpack this.
It really is an exciting area. And what's so fascinating is just the sheer scale of the problem this is trying to solve, a challenge genetics has faced for, well, decades. We got really good at sequencing genomes, reading someone's entire genetic code. So we can spot thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of rare genetic variations in one person. But finding them, that's just step one. The really, really big challenge has always been figuring out which of these changes actually cause disease, what we call pathogenic, and which ones are just, harmless quirks, benign variants.
Right, so you could see the spelling change in the DNA, but you didn't know if that change was the bad guy causing the problem or just like normal human variation.
Exactly.
Sounds like finding a needle in a haystack, but the haystack is made of billions of these genetic letters.
That's a good way to put it. And for a long time, the traditional methods we used, they had some real drawbacks. We'd often look at population frequency, sort of assuming, okay, if a mutation is super rare, it's probably bad.
Yeah.
But that missed a lot of ultra-rare ones that could still be, devastating. Then there's family history. Useful, sure, but it can be patchy. People might not remember things perfectly, or the family's just too small to see a clear pattern.
And I guess some families just don't have a long enough or clear enough history documented. Right?
Exactly that. Or maybe the disease shows up differently even within the same family. And finally, if you really, really needed to know, you do these costly, time-consuming lab tests, functional testing, trying to mimic the mutation in a dish to see what it does. It's just incredibly slow, expensive, and you just can't scale it up for the thousands upon thousands of variations we find. So yeah, these older ways were often slow, incomplete, left a lot of question marks for patients and doctors needing answers. We were often guessing or just stuck.
Definitely sounds like a problem that needed, well, a totally new angle. So what's the breakthrough here? What cuts through all that complexity? And our sources point to Mount Sinai bringing in the big guns, machine learning. They've developed this thing called an ML penetrance score. Sounds very techy, but this seems to be the core idea. Can you break that down? Like, what exactly is penetrance in genetics, and how is AI figuring it out?
Absolutely. Penetrance is a really key concept here. Basically, in genetics, it means the percentage of people who have a specific gene mutation and actually develop the disease linked to it. Because historically, for lots of rare gene changes, it's been murky. You might have the mutation, but it doesn't automatically mean you'll get sick. It's not always straightforward, gene equals disease. That uncertainty, that's been a huge barrier.
Ah, okay. So it's the chance that the gene will actually show up as a disease, not just sit there. Got it.
Precisely. And that's where this Mount Sinai system uses machine learning so cleverly. Instead of just looking at the genetic code by itself, it digs into real-world health outcomes. It analyzes millions of anonymized electronic health records, EHRs, all that clinical data, diagnoses, lab results, medicines people took, scans, even doctor's notes sometimes. The system takes these millions of patient stories, these journeys, and for the first time connects specific rare genetic mutations with the patterns of disease it sees in that data.
So it's not just what mutation someone has, but looking at what actually happened to them, medically speaking, over time. That feels like a massive shift from just cataloging mutations. How big a deal is that for geneticists?
Oh, it's transformative. The system learns that connection. If mutation X keeps showing up alongside symptom Y and lab result Z, it flags that. By comparing what you'd expect versus what it actually sees across all this real-world data, it calculates this probabilistic ML penetrance score. Think of it as a much more precise risk number for each specific mutation. So instead of a vague, you might be at risk, it's moving towards, based on millions of cases, there's a moving 80% chance this specific mutation leads to symptoms, and here's what we should watch for. It makes penetrance dynamic, data-driven, something you can actually use.
Wow. A huge leap from fuzzy risk to something much more concrete. And you mentioned millions of records. At that scale, the sheer amount of data, that must be the absolute foundation here, right?
Oh, totally. It's key. This isn't just some clever algorithm running on a small data set. Its power comes from the massive, diverse data it's built on. It pulls together a few really important kinds of info. First, those electronic health records, the EHRs. Millions of anonymized patient records from different hospital systems. That gives the AI this huge, real-world view of how diseases actually progress.
So not just a single snapshot, but like the whole movie of someone's health over time.
That's a great way to think about it. But that's only one piece. Then it integrates objective biological data, things like standard blood tests, kidney function, liver function, cholesterol, glucose, real hard numbers.
Right, so not just what doctors wrote down, but the actual lab results too, the kind of medical fingerprint. Does that mean it can spot subtle things a human might miss just looking at one patient?
Exactly. And the crucial part is linking all this clinical and lab data with the actual genomic data, the whole genome or exome sequences from those same patients. That integration, tying the genetics directly to the health history in labs, that's the magic multiplier. The AI sees the genetic code and the health outcomes side by side at scale. And finally, it uses complex algorithms for what's called phenotypic correlation, basically finding subtle patterns, like maybe this rare kidney gene variant consistently pops up alongside slightly off creatinine levels in certain kidney medication prescriptions. The system spots that link. It moves us beyond just stats about genes towards a much richer clinical genomic picture of risk.
Okay, that's incredibly sophisticated. My head's spinning a bit, but in a good way. So let's ground this. What does this actually mean for healthcare? For doctors trying to help people, for patients, for, someone listening right now?
Right, the so what question. And the impact is potentially massive. First off, it's a huge boost for precision medicine. Doctors can finally get better at telling the difference between those harmless genetic quirks we talked about and the ones that really need attention, need intervention. For years, finding a rare variant often just meant more worry, more uncertainty. Now, if that variant comes with a high ML penetrance score, a doctor knows with much more confidence, okay, this is something we need to act on.
Can you give a specific example, maybe?
Sure. Take a gene like BRCA1, linked to cancer risk. Say a patient has a rare BRCA1 mutation. If the ML score for that specific mutation is high, suggesting a strong chance it will lead to cancer, that patient could be fast-tracked for earlier, more frequent screenings. Maybe even preventative options could be discussed much sooner. It allows for really proactive, tailored care instead of waiting for symptoms. That saves lives.
Right, so making decisions with more certainty, focusing efforts where they matter most, getting ahead of the curve.
Exactly. And think about rare diseases. Patients often go through this awful diagnostic odyssey, right? Years bouncing between specialists, no answers, just frustration and worsening health. This system could drastically shorten that. By giving real-world evidence on whether their specific mutation is likely the cause, it could potentially end years of uncertainty much faster. We all know stories like that. This offers hope.
I can only imagine the relief. And for drug companies, developing new medicines, running trials, this must change things for them too.
Oh, absolutely. Big time. Pharma companies can use these scores to group patients for clinical trials much more precisely. Stratify them is the term. So instead of enrolling patients who might have the right genetic profile, they can zero in on those with a high penetrance score for the exact mutation their drug targets. This makes trials way more efficient, faster, cheaper, and much more likely to succeed for these targeted therapies. It helps get the right drugs to the right people sooner.
And what about bigger picture stuff, like public health systems or insurance?
Yeah, looking even broader, there are potential public health uses. Health systems or insurers might use these scores carefully to identify populations at higher genetic risk for certain conditions. If you can spot a group predisposed to something preventable or manageable early on, you could launch targeted screening or prevention programs that could improve health across populations and maybe even lower long-term costs. It's shifting towards proactive health at a larger scale.
This sounds incredibly powerful, almost like a medical crystal ball in a way. But like you said, powerful tech brings big questions. Our sources definitely highlighted some practical hurdles and ethical things to watch out for. It's not quite magic, is it?
No, absolutely not. It's groundbreaking, yes, but we have to be careful and responsible about how it's used. Like any powerful tool, it comes with challenges. A huge one is data privacy, obviously. We're talking about massive amounts of very sensitive genetic and health data in those EHRs. Protecting patient anonymity, ensuring security, preventing re-identification that needs ironclad safeguards, non-negotiable.
Right, making absolutely sure that even with all that data, you can't possibly trace it back to one specific person.
Exactly. Then there's the risk of bias. This is critical. If the data used to train the AI mainly comes from certain groups, and unfortunately medical data often is skewed, the scores might not be as accurate for underrepresented populations. That could actually make existing health disparities worse, not better. So we need constant checks, careful monitoring, ways to mitigate that bias to make sure it's fair for everyone.
That's a really important point. If the training data has blind spots, the AI inherits them. We need equity.
We do. And then there's how doctors actually use a clinical responsibility.
Mm.
Doctors can't just blindly follow an AI score. It's a tool, a powerful one, but it has to be used alongside genetic counseling. The full patient picture, their lifestyle, their values. It should help clinical judgment, not replace the doctor-patient relationship or human expertise. The score is just one piece.
Yeah.
And finally, regulation. Bodies like the FDA need to set clear standards for these AI prediction tools before they become widespread in clinics. We need rules for safety, effectiveness, accountability.
Okay, lots of important guardrails needed there. So, looking past those immediate challenges, what's the future vision? Where do the Mount Sinai folks see this heading? What's next for these ML scores?
Well, they're thinking big, aiming for a truly global impact. One major step is expanding the data inputs, moving beyond just U.S. hospitals to include data from around the world, global genomic integration. Imagine the power of learning from diverse populations everywhere. That would make the scores even more accurate and help reduce those biases we talked about.
That would give a much more complete picture of human genetics, yeah.
Exactly. They also see a really powerful link up, a synergy between this AI prediction and gene editing tech, like CRISPR. These penetrance scores could help guide where and when gene editing might be most useful and safe. If you know a mutation has a very high chance of causing severe disease, maybe that makes it a stronger candidate for precise editing, right? It helps target the interventions.
Wow, so the AI could help pinpoint which genetic typo is worth fixing and maybe even how best to approach it. That's mind-blowing.
It's aiming for that kind of precision, yeah.
Mm.
And maybe the most exciting part, the system is built to keep learning. As more health records, more sequencing data becomes available worldwide, it's designed to constantly update and refine its predictions. Real-time improvement. It really feels like a shift. We went from just cataloging genes to now actively predicting disease risk using AI, guiding interventions, and continuously getting smarter. It's pushing towards truly personalized medicine.
What an absolutely fascinating deep dive. This Mount Sinai AI system, it really does feel like a huge leap for precision medicine. Calculating these ML penetrance scores gives doctors, researchers, and, well, potentially all of us, a much sharper lens to look at genetic risk, moving from fuzzy possibilities to actual probabilities we can maybe act on. If we manage it responsibly, paying close attention to those challenges like privacy and bias, this really could speed up rare disease diagnosis, boost preventative care, make drug development smarter, and just reshape healthcare. It gets us closer to that promise of AI-driven genomic medicine. So here's something to think about. As we get better and better at predicting our genetic futures with this kind of accuracy, how does that change how we think about predisposition? What new choices, what new responsibilities does that open up for us as individuals and as a society? Lots to consider there. Thank you for sharing the sources and walking us through this, and thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.